I believe that the gender wage gap is closing, although the progress towards closing it has taken and will take a longer amount of time. Not just because women desire equal pay, but because women who are a part of other social groups, such as colored ethnic groups, poverty, and motherhood, their intersections play a part in why closing the gap for women is being stalled. I believe that the progress made in the gender wage gap may be due in part to single white women and not women of color, because women of color are experiencing both gender and racial discrimination when being offered wages for occupations dominated by men. Women in motherhood are also experiencing risk in not only being able n- in risk in not only being offered an equal wage because of the need to balance caregiving responsibilities. I believe that the wage gap for women in motherhood compared to their male counterparts may be due to compensating for unexpected missed days due to family needs. According to the Joint Economic Committee, black women are 63%, Native women earn 55%, and Latin women earn 55% of the wage of comparable men. I believe the gender wage gap has made progress with white women. However, there are women of color who experience the bulk of the gender wage gap due to the intersections of race. I believe that they may not be viewed as competent in the workforce as white women, as women are not viewed as competent in the workforce in comparison to men. I believe we can overcome this gap by implementing acts that allow women from all social groups to receive equal pay, such as the Child Care for Workers Act, which would seek to provide high quality, low income child care for working families. In society, I have not observed the gender wage gap in the workplace beyond what I've seen in movies, where women are outraged that they are not receiving an equitable wage to their male counterparts. As an individual who seeks to work in mental health, starting in group practices as a single black woman, I'm aware that my race and gender may play a role in wage gap disparities in comparison to white women, white men, and men in general that I may work with. I believe that Cohen is saying modern identities are how people think about themselves and their lives. I believe modern identities may play a role in decision making and determining whether specific achievements, such as getting married or having family, are the most important aspects of an individual's life, or are merely a decision that is not the most significant. I believe that modern identities and ideas of family today play a role in a number of marriages in the U.S. For example, women with high economic standing may not prioritize marriage and family as central to their identity because they do not need them due to their economic success. According to Cohen, women's increased earnings boost their potential for independence, and that independence can also reduce men's incentives to marry them. I believe in the past, women were less economically well off, having to fight for rights to work and for rights to work for fight for rights to work and for equal wages when able to work. This increased the need for stability through marriage, which in turn increased men's incentive to marry as they knew women would be able and willing to fill the role of homemaker in order to secure the stability. In 2025, however, where women have greater access to economic stability and independence, there is less incentive to get married and fulfill the traditional gender roles of being a homemaker and a provider. This creates less incentive for males to get married because it becomes harder to find a woman who is willing to fulfill the role of a homemaker. The United States v. versus Windsor case is a case that arose because the United States did not want to honor same sex marriages legalized in some states under policies like the tax codes. The case involved Edith and Dia Spires, who were married to each other. When Spires died, Windsor had to pay $600,000 from their estate due to their marriage being invalid. I believe that the government recognized Windsor's and Spires' marriage. I believe that if the government had recognized Windsor's and Spires' marriage, Windsor would not have to pay taxes on their estate because she is the surviving spouse, meaning she owns the estate as well. According to Cohen, the Windsor decision did not lead to the overruling of same sex marriage bans in other states. However, the decision in Utah ultimately led to the overturn of the ban. The case did not do much in moving the U.S. towards marriage equality besides shining a light on it. After the Windsor decision, same sex marriage bans in other states were still constitutional. I believe the Windsor case is an excellent example of how back then, if the government were to legalize same sex marriage fully, there would be significant institutional ramifications, such as Social Security recognizing same sex marriages and providing them with the same benefits as opposite sex marriages. Hospitals would be required to recognize individuals in same sex marriages as spouses and honor their legal right to make legal decisions. These ramifications legally require these institutions to recognize same sex marriages in their practices or be at risk for discrimination. In society, same sex marriage is currently legalized in Tennessee, where I currently reside. This means I can get married to a woman and receive the benefits of a spouse, and we can report shared income, receive tax deductions, obtain Social Security benefits limited to married individuals, and have legal authority over health decisions of the other spouse if the individual is unable to do so. Moore is studying lesbians of color, specifically black women who are creating families and are attempting to. Moore bases her research on her book Invisible Families, which analyzes a group of black women during a time of racial segregation who discovered their gay identities. I believe her research more is attempting to examine the experience of black lesbians and how they emphasize equal responsibility for provider work and housework. The core of Moore's work is to discover how women make decisions about what they value in relationships. However, Moore's primary focus is on women of color. According to Moore, studies have underestimated the experience of women of color, and in their work, they will examine the relative importance of two components in egalitarianism. I believe Moore's study purpose was to contribute to research that primarily focuses on white women and examining how women make decisions about what they value. Um, I believe her work will highlight other groups of people who experience intersectionality, such as single moms who are lesbian women of color and what they value in the family unit. In the article, Lopez examines how men and women construct their identities and how their identities are linked to their pursuit of education. I believe in her article, Lopez explores how both males and females were raised and taught to approach their gender identity. Then Lopez addresses how their gender identity affects their perspective on education. I believe Lopez is attempting to determine how gender roles affect men's and women's perceptions of education in their lives. According to Lopez, women's narratives were marked by an assumption that they would assume full responsibility for their families, which in turn has driven women's decisions about their future to avoid this, such as pursuing education, where they view it as a means of achieving independence. I believe women who have watched their mothers struggle in family raising and have been raised to take on a small portion of that struggle seek to not assume the struggle of raising an entire family by themselves, so they initially avoid the familiar route and choose education as a means of escape and independence where they are educated. Some common themes of gender across social institutions such as work, education, and family are that women are expected to prioritize the well being of the family over their own pursuits in work, education, and family. As for men, they are often taught to prioritize work and education over the well being of their families. These themes manifest in gender wage pay gaps, unequal family roles, and familiar responsibilities. And sexism. I believe that these themes push society farther away from equality, and I do not believe we are closer to equality at all. I believe divergence from gender roles, such as women entering male dominated workspaces and women prioritizing education over making a family, can look like successful equality. However, with sexism still at play, supporting the patriarchy, I do not believe true equality will ever be achieved. According to Ferguson, white males are seen as naturally naughty and black women are looked upon as sexual beings. This is a side effect of sexism where male behavior, especially with female behavior, is excused because they are viewed as the better gender. At the same time, women are hypersexualized and judged harshly. Social institutions such as work uphold sexist views through gender wage pay gaps. Families that require women to give emotionally while the men can simply provide. And education when women are expected to thrive and put aside family for it.